Call to order the Wicomico County Council, not legislative session, but work session for May 22nd, 2025. The work session today is to try to review the final details on the fiscal year 2026 budget. Good evening. Good.
Pam Olin, Finance Director.
Thank you.
Julie Giordano, County Executive.
Bucky Luffman, Director of Administration.
Thank you. Okay, we have quite a few things here in front of us here. Are you familiar with any of a lot of this documentation that we have as far as council changes? I know there were some parts of this that I know you contributed to, Pam.
I was not provided anything.
Mm-hmm.
She's not been provided that.
I have not been provided anything. I provided you a list of stuff, but I was not provided anything.
Okay, I see that here. What about budget questions that I thought maybe you had been?
I got those late yesterday, and I can walk through those.
Okay, all right.
Starting at the top, human resources. As I stated in previous meetings, comparing actual to budget is not the appropriate comparison to look at. You're comparing an actual number, and a budget number is fully loaded. Budget has full expenses, has everything that we think we might possibly spend. An actual has potential audit adjustments, has potential things that ultimately got encumbered and carried over into the next fiscal year. So comparing an actual, which is what you did, for 229 to 350, means that you're comparing a number that is an actual expense versus an estimate as to what we think we're going to spend. Contractual services, in that we spend for employment law questions, we spend for Bolton questions. That's what that $20,000 for contractual services, as I stated at the HR meeting. The collective bargaining, next year's the contract year. That's why it's $70,000. So that has been previously discussed.
I guess the question there was whether the contractual services, so the contractual services at 20 is separate completely from the
Yes.
collective bargaining. Okay, these, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, I mean, I can only go with the question that I was given, and I just have contractual services 20, what is it, and collective bargaining 70.
Right.
I'm not interpreting anything into these. I am taking them at the face as what I was provided.
Which is correct. These are really just issues where, in the last couple of sessions, especially when we're interviewing with department heads, I know some of these questions I had, whereas I didn't get the chance to ask those because of our time restraints. So I went back through a lot of the budget, well, actually the entire budget, to see, and I put down anything that I thought was a question on my part and something that could possibly be of interest to the council. So that's really the purpose there.
Public Works, same, comparing fiscal 24 actual to fiscal 26 budget. We budget full employment, as council has been previously told. In addition, since then, we have added an environmental health position to that department. And in 2024, we didn't hire the deputy director until February. We did not have a director, and we didn't have an environmental health person. So that is why there is a significant difference between 24 and 26.
Yeah, and again, another part of this is, I think, for the council's benefit to recognize, because in many, many instances, the increases from 2 years out have been rather astronomical. And it's just as an awareness.
Comparing actual to budget is not the appropriate comparison. It should be budget.
You don't think it's a fair comparison to say, hey, we spent $170,000 in 2024, and now we're proposing to spend $439?
No,
There's no
because,
sense in that?
again, you have been told we budget full employment. We didn't spend full employment. Those are two very different things. That's a very different case.
Right, but in many instances, that's not always, I'm just trying to suggest that these are issues that warrant clarification, period.
I'm not
It's
sure
not trying to find fault with anything.
I'm not sure I understand your next set of questions. They're just a list of names and numbers. I don't understand Public Works, 16, 39, 48, 122. I don't know if you want me to say hut, hut, hut. I don't know. I don't know what you're asking there.
Right. Those are simply, that's just a copy and paste from particular pages that were noted in the for reference in the budget. I guess the main question from my part would be on the water and sewer master plan with the sanitary district. We've always been okay with approving what we need to approve, the $850,000 for this year and then $250,000 a year after. But I guess the idea is what exactly
And I have that information right here.
is the $850,000 for?
The
and $250,000?
$850,000 is intended to, in '26, we did an SRF to connect
SRF.
it's an application to the state revolving fund for projects. And we looked at the Parsonsburg sewer extension for the West Side Regional Project. We are looking at requested for concept and designs, and that will span multiple years. Additionally, funds each fiscal year are budgeted to be used for small sewer extension projects in areas with failing septics. In the next 2 years, Department of Public Works would like to proceed with the design for the pump station to take landfill leachate to the Salisbury sewer system. And finally, although construction will typically be funded via grant and loan, a portion of the construction has to be funded by us, and it is such as abandoning private wells or septic tanks. So next year, we have the biggest piece of that $850,000 is doing the design to connect to a lift station to get the leachate out of the landfill.
So is that Mr., go ahead.
Adam Corey, Executive Director of Environmental Services.
Thank you, Mr. Corey.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and this is great. I'm glad you're here. So with what Ms. Olin just stated and all that, is that part of sanitary district or is that part of landfill work?
So the leachate portion, if we're, getting a stinger, if you will, force main that allows us to discharge leachate and, feather it out, dose it out to the city of Salisbury instead of the encumbrance that we have of trucking.
Right.
That would be not necessarily under the sanitary district's purview, but I'm hoping by the time the sanitary district is actually up and running and that project were to come online under construction, yes, it would.
And I guess it's neither really here nor there, but I would wonder why a project like that wouldn't already be listed separately as another issue as opposed to what we're really hoping for in the water
Certainly.
master plan.
So the water sewer master plan, and again, what our main goals are coming in with the sanitary district, as it were, is the Salisbury Septic Elimination Project, where we are already in the hopper with the Parsonsburg to Pittsville, and then the West Side Regional Wastewater Systems. The $850 up front is for that, again, forward funding. We're going to go for every dollar we can in state revolving fund reimbursement and Bay Restoration Fund reimbursement, but you do have to forward fund. So you're talking about the SRF application processes, the consulting, the design work, and all that before you get to construction. And that's why you see that drop off down to $250. And we left that $250 in the CIP up until 2030 just to try to capture any unknowns that are out there. There's some other communities out there in the county that are kind of on the fringes that really would not be well served by a large system, but might do well with a small decentralized wastewater treatment system or small water supply systems. So that's kind of why we judge it that way.
I appreciate that. It's kind of like the MS4. I never ask about that, but it's like, what are we doing with this?
A lot. That's a pretty heavy lift.
I have that one down further on the list.
Okay. Yeah.
Well, and just to let you know, the one thing that we did, we've preliminarily talked about is, and it depends, this is a Washington thing, we might look at congressional directed spending, which is what they use now for the term earmark for DC to help pay for that sort of lift station that would do leachate. The issue with that is you don't know for several months if you get it, and then once they say you're awarded it, you won't get it for another 14 months. So it's sort of one of those things, is this something that we really believe we need to pounce on, or is this something that can wait 18 months, 2 years, or we wait a few months and then we find out we don't get it? But that's an option we're exploring to help pay for some of that. So,
Gotcha.
The next one is actually two sections. You have fleet vehicles, and then down second to the bottom you have leased vehicles. Those two go together. The budgets for the 3 years of 24, 25, and 26 is 817, 950, and 940. So we're actually going down in budget between 25 and 26. The reason why the number is so low in 24 is because as we get payments back from enterprise for selling stuff, we net those in there. Some of them go straight to revenue, some of them get netted in this number, and so the number is adjusted for the return of the sale of the vehicle, some of the vehicles. So the we budget full, like we're gonna have every vehicle for 12 months for the whole year. And some of the vehicles we can't get right away. So again, kind of like people, we budget as if we're gonna be able to get everything on July 1st, and that doesn't always happen. But the concern is if we don't budget that way, and it's a good year, and there's vehicles sitting there waiting for us, then we don't have the funds to make our payments throughout the year. And that, on the leased vehicle question down below, Appendix B that was included this year states that the 940 is just general fund, and the sheriff's office is a separate line item below that, and then any of the other departments are in their own budgets.
When they sell the vehicles at the end of the term of the lease, I'm assuming there's a sell, they're selling.
Well, so, yes and no. So
right.
some vehicles we end up keeping past
Right.
the lease term.
Okay,
Because it makes sense based on mileage, the value of the vehicle, that kind of stuff. So we evaluate each vehicle based on the vehicle itself, not how long, not that the lease is done. Now, there are certain vehicles that it becomes advantageous to us that there is a significant market for used vehicles for a, I don't know, Ford Fiesta. We don't own Ford Fiesta, but like Ford Fiesta. And so Enterprise comes to us and says, hey, we can get you this. It's the same dollar amount as a lease and or slightly lower, but we can also get you X dollars for the sale of the vehicle that you currently have because we have a market for that vehicle.
does the sale go back to the department, or does it go back to the general fund?
It depends on, again, if it's a general fund item, it goes back into this account. That's why the number looks low. Or if it's Rec and Parks, it goes into Rec and Parks. If it's Civic Center, it's Civic Center. So it is whose vehicle is it that has been traded in gets the funds back.
Yeah, I had the two different ones, because it's fleet vehicles is a separate arrangement altogether from leased vehicles, is that correct? Because the fleet vehicles had to have been a separate line item because it was on page 19, I'm assuming, and the leased vehicles, I don't have the.
I don't have, so your page numbers are not my page numbers, so I couldn't
They're PDF page numbers.
Yeah,
Sorry.
so I couldn't correspond your numbers to anything that I had. So we have a Department 47 that's called Fleet.
Yeah.
In that department of Fleet, there happens to be the leased vehicles. So they're a synonymous thing. So the department itself is called Fleet. The line item in the budget is leased vehicles.
Okay,
So the actual name of the department is Fleet Vehicles Lease.
okay,
And then, so the two are synonymous. The 940 is the same number.
okay, yeah.
We have
The first
one
one
of them.
came from Exhibit B, and the second one came from just the Munis.
Yeah.
Okay.
So in my view, the department is Fleet. We are spending on leases in that department.
Okay. It just appears that the 2024 figure for the fleet vehicles was completely different from the leased vehicles.
It's the same. Okay. Roads, you asked for why operating is different between the 2 years. So again, that is the amount of paving that got accomplished during that year, the amount of road surfaces, and then some of it is due to encumbrances that got carried over into the next fiscal year. So we budget in fiscal '24, and we have a PO that's open. That PO carries over into the next fiscal year if we still have payments to make on it. And so it becomes an expense of the next fiscal year, but the PO carried the budget forward from the prior year.
Some of these, again, are just personal notes, like
Yep.
own 64 vehicles. It's just a,
Contractual services, that's primarily safety resources that we hire to help us for our department. And then consultant services is using outside consultants. It's a traffic signal agreement that we have between us and I believe the state for some of our traffic signals. So they are two different numbers and two different amounts.
the reason that was in there, from my perspective, was I was just trying to make sure that with roads, as we're trying to add more, staff there, and we're hiring more administration, that we were not continuing to go through the same expenses with consultants and things like that. We could reduce those numbers if we have an administration in place to address those concerns, so.
So this is one thing that I can't explain, and I have never spent time because it's not a column that means anything to me and means anything to what I'm doing. The projection column,
Yeah, and it's not
means-
really fair, Pam, for you to be answering all these questions. I appreciate you doing this, but
Oh.
go ahead.
the projection column of 118,431, I have no idea how Munis calculated that number. It is not a column that we pay attention to. We pay attention to how much we've spent, how much we have encumbered, and how much we have remaining in budget. Munis does some formula, and I don't quite know how they calculated $118,000 on a budget of like $3,000 with no spending. I can't answer the question, so I don't know how.
Can we cut it?
No, because it's not budget.
I know.
It's not the budget
I know,
column.
I know.
So no, we can't. Capital other, as discussed during the roads, that is for the 3-year Upper Ferry. So that is the funding to renovate the Upper Ferry Ferry. What is the MS4 for $500,000 a year? So we are required by the state to do mandatory reporting associated with MS4. And in this, we have the ability to do supplies for outreach, drain markers, public meetings, partnerships, as well as do stormwater runoff control. And so we are required every year to it also includes some of our in-house training, our spill logs, all of these pollution prevention updates. We are required by the state to track all of this stuff, apply it to the $500,000 that we put in there, and spend the money to help maintain the waterways.
Yeah, not that we want to micromanage anything, but maybe it wouldn't hurt to just, if we get an itemization, like the last couple of years of how it's broken out and what happened, just as a curiosity. I think that'd be kind of interesting to know. And I get it. It's state mandated. There's no doubt about it. So,
I can get you the detail.
yeah, thanks.
I'll be honest, I don't understand the question of, don't understand revenue and expenses for solid waste. So I don't know exactly what you mean by that. I did provide to Laura the job description for Superintendent of Waste Disposal. That was a new position. It is currently vacant. The reason why it has gone up is because it was previously budgeted at the amount of somebody being in there. It's now budgeted at the midpoint.
Can you back up to the revenues and expenses for solid waste? Can you just explain how it's an enterprise fund and that the revenues, and I'll let you.
Okay. So we have to run this like a business. It is a business. It is supposed to make a profit. And that profit, it needs to be available for us to be able to have money for post-closure costs. We have to maintain those post-closure costs. We have the revenue that we generate for this business.
In addition to regular operational
It has, and that's where I was headed. It has to cover all regular operational expenses, as well as all of our capital needs and all of our debt needs, because this fund does not receive any appropriation from the general fund. And as such, it, with the additional regulations that we are required to have, we are required to make sure that we have these funds available. In addition, we take, on the lower shore, we take the largest amount of trash in of anyone. I know one question that was previously asked was, what would be the financial impact of just doing $88 a ton in January or doing $84 in July and $88 in January? And $88 in January just on a financial basis means that we're going to lose 200 and, hold on, I got to find my right number, $276,000 for next fiscal year. We are not going to bring in enough revenue in the year to cover the expenses of that budget. If we do 84 and 88, we are going to make a tiny profit of about $170,000. Now, that is prior to any other changes that council makes. So there are some other changes that would fluctuate that number, plus or minus, but just on the revenue side of things, leaving the budget exactly as it stands, we'd lose $276,000 on an entity that we're attempting to try to make money so we can put aside and stop borrowing money to do landfill. And we would also, at 84, 88, we would make a small amount of money. Now, on that, we are, as I stated at the beginning of that, the location of choice for a lot of haulers. There is nothing in our code, there's nothing in anything that says that they can't bring waste from other areas into our facility. We have grown by about 26% in the last year. We are behind on doing the cell 7, which is the next cell that we need to be able to maintain and have trash be dumped at our facility. And current estimates say that we will run out of space in March or April if we continue the way we're going, and our new cell will not be open till August. So we have to do something to make us not as attractive. And one of those things is to make our number be the number that we're trying to get to and have people look at their routes and go, maybe I should be taking my Worcester County route trash to Worcester County. Maybe I should be taking my Sussex County route trash to Sussex County versus waiting and being lined up at our facility at 6 o'clock in the morning or 6:30 in the morning to dump the trash for the entity that we know is stationed in Delmar. So we need to do multiple things to bridge that gap. But one of the things that we need to do is make our number reflect our costs. And $88 in January doesn't reflect our costs because we're not making any money. And so the first step would be council at a minimum doing the 84, 88 is what I would recommend, because otherwise, and even then I suggest still 88 in July. If you won't go to the 100, do 88 in July and let us start digging out of the hole that we have. Contractual services is $75,000. That's for cell 7. For consultants going up to from 200 to 400,000. That's new requirements from the state associated with PFAS testing. Capital other is a diesel fuel tank that we're looking to potentially install at that facility. It would allow the vehicles to stay on property. We would also be able to buy off-road diesel and not have to pay taxes on that, in the fact that if we would be able to do kind of farm diesel, because the vehicles that we would be filling up from that tank would not go on road, they would stay at the facility. And then capital equipment, 100. It's called a tarp-o-matic. I couldn't tell you what that is. So I would have to turn to Adam as to what a tarp, it is something for daily use there, but I don't know what that is.
What the heck is a tarp-o-matic?
That has something to do with the tarp.
So, I've said before, one of the most important machines, the most important machine on the landfill is the compactor, because that gets your densities down, where you're able to fit more trash into the space. Every day, no matter what, every landfill in the state of Maryland has to cover every piece of trash that was brought in with a minimum of 6 inches of daily cover of clean fill, or an alternative cover method. Tarp-o-matic, we've got one now. It's way too old. It's probably older than I am. Actually, that's probably not true, but our Tarp-o-matic's almost had it. Literally, it's bubblegum shoestring kind of thing at this point. That Tarp-o-matic rolls a tarp out over the majority of your working face at the end of the day, so you don't have to use soil. So if you don't have to use soil every night, that's more area you can put trash on the next day.
You mean to keep trash from flying away?
Yeah, so it's vector control, keeping it from blowing away, keeping it from catching on fire. There's all sorts of, reduce odors, all that sort of thing.
Keep animals from scavenging it and flying away.
Yeah, we're very lucky. We don't, there's landfills in some parts of the country where bears are a big issue at night digging up the trash. We just have seagulls and stuff.
Will that help us meet the gap, I guess, from the...
It is a losing battle at this point, Mr. Hastings, for sure, but every evening that we can put more artificial cover versus dirt, it does save.
Yeah.
Like right now, every night we're splitting our tarps in half. So we'll roll our tarp out, disconnect the tarp, roll another tarp out. The unfortunate issue is that the tarp-o-matic we have is just like the compactor it's attached to. Tomorrow morning might be its last morning, and I mean that's just the way it is. We're up there, shooting it with ether every morning to even get it to start.
All right.
Yep.
That's good.
It's kind of like Bunky's coffee.
Yeah.
So,
You have a question, Jeff?
Yeah, just,
Yes, sir.
you said an alternative cover method. Would that include the spoils from Sharps Point?
Yeah, certainly, and we've gotten really glad you brought that up. We just did get MDE's approval to start utilizing dredge spoil material from our Sharps Point Cell 1. The problem is, again, that's another soil fill. So I want to use a tarp every day as much as I possibly can. Using the soil takes up more space.
Even though we're getting 2 brand-new dump trucks to haul that material back and forth.
I think Rhodes is getting those, but yeah, we need that anyway because we got to get that material out of there. They're two related but not necessarily joined at the hip concepts. We've been using a tarp with a tarp-o-matic at our landfill for, I don't know, at least 20, if not 30 years.
and we still use dirt.
And we still use dirt every day.
So how does that work if Rhodes is getting the dump trucks, but we're hauling spoils to the landfill? Is there
I'm pretty sure that
cost?
those costs are being weighed internally and then.
As I stated, the last meeting, I think at the CIP meeting associated with that, the vehicles are roads. The dredge is a general fund
Right.
item. The advantage of us putting it at solid waste means that we don't have to buy in the general fund another location to
Right.
put it at.
Yeah.
So it is a general fund expense for those two things. Yes, the landfill is going to benefit from it, but so is the general fund going to benefit from it by not having to pay for another location to put those spoils.
I appreciate you sharing it again, because there might be some people watching this today that weren't watching the other day.
Yep.
So,
And
Good
we're
to-
also having conversations, with Adam's leadership on the issue, with both federal and state government to see if we can find beneficial reuse projects. So then we get the dirt out of there or what have you, the dredge material. And, it benefits low-lying area, marsh, things like that. And we don't have to take up space at the
Yeah.
landfill. So we're really pushing hard, hoping that that's a good option for maybe as soon as next year.
We had a really, really good call this morning with U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, and we're going to have them tour the Sharps Point facility here maybe within next week on some really cool, innovative reuse for dredge. So, yeah.
good. Thank you.
To the diesel tank, when you
Yes.
were talking about buying it, and so you wouldn't have to pay road taxes?
So again, so we could use like farm diesel, which is dyed diesel, if we installed a tank at the solid waste versus right now, we have to go over to roads, it goes on the road, it is not considered an off-road vehicle. So we can't use that kind of diesel. So it does have a cheaper cost so again, the advantage to and we're not looking at just having a tank with a pump on it. It's still going to have a system that people are going to have to, it's going to track how much is used on each vehicle and that kind of stuff to maintain controls associated with that fuel. But it will allow us to buy it at a cheaper price for vehicles that never leave the landfill site.
The members of the council, Pam, as far as the tipping fee goes, I think all of us have a lot of heartburn over raising that fee, changing it. How would the council feel about, and I don't know how you would balance the budget on this, of course, this is an enterprise fund, so I guess it wouldn't come in. How would the council feel, and whether it's even legal or not, of giving the county executive's office the okay to do whatever she needs to do with the tipping fee? About that, we're just saying, if they think 88 is good, let them do it. If they think 84 is enough, if they think 96 is enough. In other words, it would be under the umbrella of the council. It would be up to them to do what they want to do.
And you have, sorry, I interrupted you.
I'll work on that all the time.
I just wanted to say.
I thought you meant by Pam. I was like,
Well, I do that too. I readily admit, I do interrupt him.
Are you understanding where I'm?
Yeah, I am, but.
You don't seem to, well, you do know. I'm not saying you don't know, but we don't know what the solution is. We don't, I can tell you right now, you're playing with fire, raising the tipping fee too much, because I've heard this from Worcester County many times, what happened when Ocean City did what they did. And it wouldn't be that hard for Salisbury to do the same thing.
So,
and you're saying, well, I heard you say one day, that may be good. Well, it isn't good.
so here's the thing, is based on the first part of what I said in the conversation, though, is at the moment, if we don't have some of these haulers go elsewhere, we will not have space for all the trash that we currently have. So I don't know the legalities of what you're suggesting and the fact that we have always set our tipping fee via resolution.
I don't want to change that, Joe. I mean, it's the process. It comes from the executive's office. We're here so the public can speak and have their input as well. If you had it just coming straight for administration, public wouldn't have any input. So I think the process needs to come.
Input with the county executive's office.
I think it needs to come from the executive's office to the council, and we'll work it out. I would like to see, like, maybe, I know we've said this before, a 6-year or a 10-year plan that also goes out to the contractors, and they can put, escalation clauses in their contracts with the municipalities, whoever they're dealing with. Yeah.
And we can certainly do that.
But I get what Pam's saying. I know exactly what the issue is, and I honestly, whether we like it or not, you have to face reality that it's getting to be somewhat cost prohibitive at the way that we're doing it. It just
yeah, I think once
really
we
is.
set this rate, then I think we would be able to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but we would be able to better shoot the projections once we know exactly what this is going to be.
Yeah, I think
Especially with the new numbers coming in
So
about the
if,
length.
at 84, we don't honestly expect, because we're right at the, let's see if I can find my note, because I did write a note this morning. Of course I can't find my note. Oh, I know where it is. I hid it from myself.
Found it.
So the Worcester County is currently at $80. I don't know what they're planning to do at their, Dorchester County is at 82, 83, but that's all the way up in Caroline County is where they dump, right? Or
No,
Dorchester.
so there's Beulah, but then there's Midshore Regional Landfill that's operated by MES that covers the 4-county area of the Midshore.
Right. So at $80 or at $84, we don't expect a significant change to patterns of our current haulers because for a dollar or two or a couple dollars, it's not going to change their pattern. At $88, it probably will. And I believe council got a letter from,
And our CAC.
about recommending that the rate increases be accepted.
Josh?
Yeah, and just curious, I guess, while we're on that topic, and because it has budget implications, I guess, if we would be projecting a 4 to 5 month gap where we basically, hey, sorry, we don't have anywhere to put your trash, we're not obviously going to have folks just tell them like, hey, go bury it in your backyard. What is the plan there? Are we
Yeah.
budgeting money? Are we say going to midshore?
We're working on a couple contingencies. We're working on some administrative concepts as to, nothing has been set in stone as to how to potentially divert some of the trash between now and that period of time to hopefully lengthen the period of time that we have. It could just be that we only have our convenience centers open, that like we have to, and the haulers aren't going to be able to dump at the convenience centers. So it's going to, and that is worst case scenario. That is absolute worst case scenario. We do not want to shut down. We do not want to stop taking trash for a lot of reasons. But
just, I guess, on that note, or should we be, I guess, to be more clear, should we be setting aside more extra funds for an emergency situation that we can't?
Understand, unfortunately, I'll just put it this way, because it's exactly what I've said to the administration and to Pam as well. The damage of the amount of space we have left has already been done. Being at $68 a ton, which was very low, very modest rate, for so long, up until January 1st of 2025, and still being below a target rate, we took way too much material. We just did. I mean, just escalated up the scale year after year after year. So the damage of space has already been done. Whatever the appetite of the council is, and I'm begging you to consider it for 80, what Pam has said already for this year, will help us as we move into the future, there's no doubt. As it pertains to the amount of space we have left in our landfill, we are actively searching for ways to find space every day. We've got areas with head space and volume available. They're extremely hard to get to and take a lot of extra logistics. The other thing is, you don't want to run afoul of your grading plan. You don't want to run afoul of your refuse disposal permit with the state. If you overfill certain areas of the landfill, yeah, we might be able to ask permission to do it, but you've got to remove that material again once you get a new cell open. I need to be able to get that new cell open before we shut things down. Because I want haulers to be able to continue to come in. I don't want trash on the side of the road.
Just on that, would the state fine us, or would others fine us if we could?
We are in constant, and when I mean constant, I mean daily communication with the state on where we stand with not only the permitting process for Cell 7, which we're putting on a fast track, and I can just tell you now, we're going to need some help, some encouragement and cheerleading, if you will, to make sure that gets through in a timely fashion. And then we got to pray for good weather during construction.
Well, and there's the way I see it, two things really hurt us, because we had some studies done where the projection from 7 would have been done in time, what have you. And what's really hurt us is our last construction project was about a year over what it should have been for cells 8 and 10. And then also the 23%
increase.
No one foresaw that we would get a 23% increase. And so that moved us from maybe having cell 7 done, several months in advance, to now we're at a critical time where it's like, will it be done?
I mean, like next week, for example, Councilman Hastings, and again, I would invite anybody on the council and the community to come out and check it out anytime, because it's really easy to explain when you're looking at it, when you're right in the thick of it, smelling it. I've got,
maybe
it's
don't
true.
pitch that.
I washed my boots before I came in this morning.
Not a marketing degree.
No, but we're looking at a spot right now where it's a bench that should remain a bench, if you understand what I'm saying as far as grading and elevation is concerned. But because we're doing a rear haul road reconfiguration in preparation for Cell 7, I'm going to take advantage of it and fill it now while I can. I shouldn't, and I know that in a year and a half, 2 years' time, once we do have Cell 7 open, I'm going to have to cut it out. But at least I'll have room for it then, and we won't have people, having to go elsewhere.
I think one of our first conversations about this, you were going to check to see what hauling it somewhere else like Ocean City does?
Yeah, about 110 to $125 a ton.
Is that what it costs to haul
Yeah,
away?
yeah. And we here in the county don't have the ability right now. It would take a significant capital investment to build like a transfer station. You know, we call our satellite areas convenience centers. Some people call them transfer stations. A true transfer station is what you see when you're riding up on Route 13 through Delaware. That big maroon barn on the left-hand side, that's a true transfer station where they take, 6,000 tons a day, and then they actually put it on the trucks and transfer it out of state or whatever they're doing. We would have to have one of those, at least on a small scale. And then our fleet couldn't do it. So we would probably have to hire it out, and that's why I go to the upper end of 125.
That's what they do. They have a
Yeah.
fleet that goes in and hauls it away.
Yep.
I don't know if they got a big barn to do it. I think they just got a yard they load it in every day.
Yeah, so
Have you explored what Ocean City does?
but we would have to have our material covered of some way. Even if it were a big pole barn, you'd have to have a walking floor in it. You'd have to have leachate collection. So it's still a pretty big expenditure. It's not just, building a manure shed and calling it a day.
Mm-hmm.
But I want to avoid that at all costs. I think we can make this work, but I'm not going to mince words with the council or anybody in the community. We're way too close for comfort where we stand on volume and space.
But I do also want to let you know that we're already designing the cell after cell 7.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
been ongoing. So we are desperately trying to both meet this deadline while also, because cell 7 has a shelf life, also
Yes,
make
it
sure
does.
that we meet the next one and the next one for the cells. And that the cell after cell 7 will be across the street.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of what will cause the cost to rise on that means we'll probably have to do the second scale.
Without a doubt. And we can't wait on that either. I mean, that's another reason we need those tipping fees to be at a reasonable level is to prepare for that, because as soon as we're done with cell 7, I mean, before a truck even comes into it, I'm going to have deforestation, wetland mitigation plans next door across the street. We got to start talking about scale house design and getting that design and contracted. I don't want to see this county in this predicament again.
You have a question, James?
Yeah, it seems like some money is part of the problem.
Part of it.
Part of the problem is trying to slow it down. I'm just pitching the idea, what if the county loans money to the solid waste? I don't know if that's even possible, but loans it temporarily so that you can get your feet on the ground, because I know you haven't been here very long, and so a lot of you guys are learning as you go. And I'm not saying you're learning as you go, but this is you've only been here for a year, so not even a year.
8 months.
Yeah, so I'm just suggesting the idea of maybe if the county can loan the solid waste, that way we're not skyrocketing our prices. Nobody wants to do that, I don't think. But maybe we can loan it to solid waste for a period of time, and then when tipping fees come up, everything will start to even out, and then solid waste could pay us back, maybe a 10-year note or something.
So the problem with that, on the short-term aspect of it, is that we're barely break even now. So if we take out another loan, where is the money coming from to pay back the general fund? And so, again, at 84 and 88, and it's $176,000 profit. A $176,000 loan isn't going to get you very far, and it's honestly not even a loan it's not even cash at the moment that we need. We need time.
Yes.
And we can't buy time with a loan.
Nope.
Yeah.
And so a loan may sound like it's going to do something, but all it's going to do, what we really need is time, and we need these rates to be setting aside the funds to be able to build cell 7 and the next cells across the street and a new scale house and potentially a building to have a transfer station and, all of those things. And we really should not be borrowing money to build solid waste facilities, because we're paying back a loan for 20 years on something that takes, on a good day, 3 to 5 years to fill up. So we're paying back interest on something that we're done using after 5 years.
I think too, I mean, similar to what James just said, is that this whole thing has sort of shifted from fiscal responsibility and sustainability to creating a deterrent. But to create the deterrent, you're doing it at the expense of local contractors. So how do you create a deterrent
Yeah.
in a more equitable fashion?
I understand that. But in my professional opinion, going from 84 to 88 is still a reasonable tipping fee for the scale of our operation and what we are compared to other landfills in the area. I firmly believe that. Even looking at it try to look at it with an unbiased, it definitely, for myself, it definitely 84 to 88 is not unreasonable in the grand scheme of things. We stayed at $68 for the longest time. We should have never done that. That was a mistake. Even if we had allowed the tipping fees to come up progressively to, let's say, $86 or $88 to get above that break-even point over the past 2 years, we would have had. The point of tipping fees is not necessarily to deterrent, but it has to be taken into consideration.
Right.
We are a business. I understand that the businesses out there are in business to, but it's kind of like a barbershop and a mortician.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't never going to run out of customers, right? They can take it elsewhere. I hate to say that. I want them coming to our landfill and want them having business, but we've put ourselves in a situation by being a charity where we have taken everyone. Our landfill has been like the Statue of Liberty. Give me you're tired, you're weak, you're poor, and before you know it, we don't have any landfill left.
So if hypothetically you went to 100, or you went to 200 tomorrow,
Yeah, I don't
exactly how are you creating that deterrent? Who do you see it as the people who will no longer be using the services and taking advantage of what we're doing now?
Certainly. So we have 5 major haulers.
Right.
Of those 5, one of them has the lion's share.
Mm-hmm.
And we can, I don't know if it's appropriate to share.
I wouldn't worry about that.
Yeah. But,
What material are they?
sir,
What material are they bringing in?
residential. Yeah, it's all residential.
When you say residential, you mean?
Household trash. Yeah. We do get, and of course, almost all of our regular haulers, except for the city of Salisbury, also have your contract bins, whether it's the hospital, whether it's food service establishments, things of that nature. But almost all of our trash is regular household refuse. From a business model for them, if you look at our location on a map, we are centralized, as Salisbury is on the shore. Our landfill is centralized amongst all other landfills in the area. If you're running routes, if you ever draw a circle on the board and start putting these circles all around until they overlap each other, we don't have that effect with our landfill based on our price and the fact that almost every commercial hauler, major commercial hauler, has their headquarters in Salisbury. So if I'm running my trucks 30 miles into Delaware or over to Worcester or down into Somerset first thing in the morning to start picking up trash, I'm certainly not going to send them 20 more miles out of their way. I'm going to let them come back to the home base and dump in the morning.
Well, I guess my question is, and maybe you can.
And if you had, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if we run out of space and we start transferring trash out, they're paying $125.
Oh, it's significantly increased.
So, doing the 84 and 88, I think we're forgetting that if that landfill fills up and we're taking the trash out, we're not going to lose $40 every time we take a load.
Here's another point, too. When you look at a
We don't want to do
contract,
that, but.
does anybody up here think that a commercial hauler that serves Worcester, Wicomico, Somerset, and Sussex County charges a different price to their customer where they're located in the shore? Probably not. They got a flat fee. So for them, the benefit's going to be, where can I take the trash that's least expensive? And that's why we filled up so quick. Yes, ma'am.
I have a question. I don't understand why we can't start at 88.
There's nothing stopping.
Nothing to stop you.
Because the reason why I say that, reality, everything's went up. And when you tell me that people from Delaware is bringing trash, and other people are bringing trash, and you say most of the haulers are in Salisbury.
Almost all of them.
Most all of them are in Salisbury. And what the haulers are going to do, they're going to pass it on to the consumer anyway.
Well, in addition, they're also going to potentially relook at some of their routes and go, okay, it may not make sense for me to start in Worcester County and end in Wicomico County if they're at $88 when Worcester County's at 80. Maybe I start in Wicomico County, end that haul of that truck in Worcester County, dump at their landfill, and then come home. So again, that is the deterrent aspect of it. Now, they are going to have routes that are just all in Salisbury, that it's going to make sense that they're going to have to maintain it in Salisbury. But if they have routes that take them into other counties anywhere near the other location of a landfill, they may have to relook at their routes. I drive up Snow Hill Road every day, and there are bins for the haulers that are located here in Salisbury on Snow Hill Road. I happen to know, having followed some of them in the morning, that some of them come back up Snow Hill Road at 7 o'clock in the morning towards Salisbury. I don't think they're coming back to Salisbury to go back to Worcester County to dump their landfill.
Trying to do, Shani, honestly, I think from the council perspective, is sort of giving these local contractors a little bit of wiggle room right now for the 2 or 3 year contracts they already have out there, especially like with some municipalities or some townships. And we realize that it has to go up. We feel that there has to be a bit of a grace period to make it, ease it up. But in 2 years, I think we have to get to a solid number, or even maybe in a year from now, we have to get it to a more solid number that everybody has to respect, has to appreciate. I mean,
It appears that we're trying to fix, we know that a problem exists. Nobody's denying that the problem exists, but it appears we're trying to fix it all in a very short period of time, which is not fair to the commercial haulers. That's why I suggested going to 88 in January. That gives them 6 months to modify their business model to meet that price point, and that gives them time to notify their customers effective January 1st, 2026. There's going to be an escalation in your contract. That was my line of thinking there. Here's a thought. Have we thought about sitting down with the commercial haulers and going, okay, we all know what the problem is how many truckloads do we get a day average at the landfill? How many total?
It totally depends.
50, 100?
Yeah, it could be 150 to 225.
Okay.
Real busy 250.
What if we were to reduce that number by 10%?
Okay, well, these are some of the conversations we're starting to have about, like, how crabbers have certain days they can crab. Right. Here's a hauler, you can come Monday, Wednesday. Merritt's hauling can come Monday, Wednesday, Friday.
Thank you, 3 days.
Cannon's hauling can come this other day. It's a concept because there's some haulers that are going to be able to hold that trash in those trucks, and it won't hurt their business too bad. There's other haulers, especially the one that takes the lion's share, that cannot afford to do that. So they're going to divert some of that waste.
Yeah.
There's ideas like that we can certainly think about.
And if they could reduce the
But
number
again,
of
that's
truckloads
going to impact
voluntarily,
yeah, well,
to take them to
Yeah.
Worcester County, Dorchester County,
sure.
and adjust their routes accordingly, like Pam said, instead of starting far away and ending in Wicomico County, they start in Wicomico and end out there.
On certain days.
On certain days,
Yeah.
right,
It's certainly
So is the
not a
council
bad
applicable
idea.
to do any sort of increase starting July 1st? Like, would you be okay doing the 84 and then going to 88? Or are you saying to keep it stagnant till January?
I kind of lost track on where we are with both plans.
Yes, certainly. So we were,
Angie won.
that's right, Angie. I'm so sorry. You know what? We need to move this chair over here
She's so
a little
quiet
further.
there.
Delaware does something, I think, that's a little unique, and I don't have the details on it because I tried to understand it and I got a little confused. You're nodding your head, so I think you know what I'm talking
Virginia
about.
does it too.
Where they have a set of fees that are standard, and then if the contractor fills, he's nodding his head, so he can talk a little bit more about this, but they fill out some paperwork, they have to do some sort of monthly, or I don't know what the periodic reporting is, to then have those rates lowered. They get some sort of credits thing. So, like, if we do the $88, that's, or $100, and that's in the code, but then it says, comma, and you'd have to talk to the lawyer, I'm not giving legal advice, but comma, but the executive may reduce it contingent on agreements, and then the agreement portion, then the solid waste can give those credits when there's proof that the waste came from a Wicomico County resident.
So, very good point. If you don't mind, I'll speak to it. There's numerous ways that other landfills deal with these things. There's items like that where you get credit for having waste solely generated within your jurisdiction. There's deterrents where you are penalized for waste that's outside your jurisdiction. There are days of the week. There are coupon, if you will, voucher programs where that truck's allowed to come in based on what. So they're all possibilities to utilize in the future. I think it would take a lot of good, hard-thinking public outreach and the council's input to decide which one of those would work the best or a combination thereof. To get back to what you were saying just a minute ago, President Cannon, about we've kind of gone around the room a lot. And this is a really good, productive conversation, but I think the ask is, if I may be so bold, Pam, is will the council please consider a $84 in July 1, and then 88 in January, and then let us work on a couple of years of progress out there to the public and the haulers. Let us get our feet underneath of us, get Cell 7 constructed, start across the road, be in a position to be not only profitable and solvent for the community, but for the county, and then see where the future takes us from there. I think that's the ask.
A couple things. What did you say Worcester County's charging a ton?
80.
80?
80.
And you said that they're paying 110 to have it hauled up the road?
Ocean City.
Ocean City's paying 110, but Ocean City left Worcester because 80 was too high. But yet they're paying 110 to have it hauled. That don't make sense.
Well,
I think we need some further investigation on
Okay.
that one. Here's no matter what we do as far as going up in price, the small municipalities, Delmar, Fruitland, Sharptown, Willards, Pittsfield, they have contracts with different haulers. You're still going to get their trash, no matter what it is. Unless Salisbury gets upset and leaves, you're still going to get their trash. The trash you're not probably going to get is these haulers that have these little black or blue bins sitting along the road. Some people will pay more. Some people is going to say, I ain't paying that. And you know where that trash is going to end up? It's going to end up along the road. People are going to quit. You're not going to lose them all. You're going to lose some. So you're going to end up with more trash. Now, I'll support going up, but you're going to pay more to clean up the roads because you're going to lose.
And we just did work the other day on getting the roads division fully set up.
Yeah, what's that going to cost?
Again, if we don't do something, that it's not, the trash isn't going to come to Wicomico County, though. It's
It'll
going to have
go
to be
somewhere
dumped.
else.
It's going to have to be dumped somewhere else.
I want an explanation of why Ocean City left Worcester County because they put theirs up to $80, but yet you're saying they're paying 110 to have it hauled up the road.
I think there was more to that story, but we can find that out. I'll talk to Weston and ask.
I think that's around.
Weston doesn't have anything to do with
City
it.
sued
I guess he
Worcester
would.
for tax differential. I think that was
Yeah,
around
I
the same
think
time.
there was a lot more to that.
Had what?
It was when Ocean City sued Worcester County for tax differential.
I think it's about
Maybe
the
a
same
can of
time.
worms we
There
don't
was-
want to go in there,
Yeah,
but.
There was a lot of
we'll go there.
contention, is what I'm saying.
Ocean City's not.
Ocean
I'll
City
talk to him,
lost
though,
all
about
of it.
why.
Road if they could haul it to Worcester County for 80.
I know a part of that component was also the recycling piece. Ocean City, straight up, they do not want to recycle. They don't care, burn it. That was their point of view.
It hurts.
I don't think we need to be in that direction. But I want to make it very clear, as a Wicomico County resident, lifelong, I don't want trash from any other county in my county, period.
I'm
Don't blame
We
you.
have 106,000 people in this county, 170,000 people here in any given day of the week. I don't want anyone else's trash in my county. And as much as we can help make that happen, that'd be great.
If you can put geographical limitations on
Yeah.
them. I don't know if you can.
Well, it'd be difficult, but the first thing I think it would need, and honestly, I'm relieved to hear you say that because that landfill is there for our people.
Josh knows that nobody in Sussex County votes for him, so
You sure?
He shouldn't-
Cross a couple over,
smart guy.
dual citizenship.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Josh.
No, but
You can GPS your trucks. I mean,
you can. We'd have to get in some legal review kind of stuff, and we can certainly talk about it.
So
Yes,
our recommendation would be 84 and 88.
And I have no idea where we even.
And we may come to you for
that-
air tags that we can throw it in Worcester County trash to see if it ends up in Wicomico.
Is that an
Or we-
acceptable, I mean, we did off the cuff with the dog kennels. So we're off the cuff again.
Well, but.
84, 88.
But it was off the cuff at the last solid waste meeting, and that's why I gave you the specific numbers. At 84, 88 does leave a small profit. 88 in January alone creates a loss. So again, it's not off the cuff from today in the fact that that question got asked at the previous solid waste meeting, and I calculated those numbers. So again, it does create a minor, but it does create a profit, which is where we should be. We should not be generating a loss in any given year.
Right, this is a consensus because we're not in a legislative session, but does this seem like an acceptable couple of numbers or not?
Okay. I will prepare the budget.
Yeah.
The budget impact and adjustment. We'll have to do a resolution for the 84, 88, but there will be actually a budget impact because amounts will have to change, primarily just in 2 lines.
As we go through the budget, should we happen to find that money that is, quote, missing, can we reevaluate this?
I think this
It's
issue,
an enterprise fund.
more so than a fiscal matter, is a sustainable matter.
What missing money?
Again, as I stated, there is, I think I previously provided you that right now, the debt number needs to come down by $130,000. I still think you do 84, 88 because now our minuscule profit becomes slightly less than minuscule. So,
I'm not saying it's not justified. I'm looking at the fact that it just went up $10 5 months ago.
But we've been paying.
And again, it's totally justified.
again,
But what impact are we going to have on the haulers, which is going to have an impact on their customers, some of whom are low income and fixed income? And like Joe says, the last thing we want is more trash on the road.
I would need to know, this is where I don't want to do anything on the fly. If $130,000 is probably about $1 or $2 in max, in the grand schemes of going to 83 versus 84. It is not going to tip. It's not like we're looking at millions. Sorry, it was a bad pun.
Yes.
Not intended, but it was a bad pun. So again, it is, and that's what that's Charles's job typically, is to create the puns.
And lose money.
So,
Pam, is every dollar swing in the tipping fee equal to about $100,000 in revenue? Up or down?
give me.
Oh, look, she's uncapping her pen.
Give me 2 seconds. Not 2 seconds.
Just mathing it.
Do you have a comment, Joe?
So.
I was going to ask Angie a question, and I can't think of the name of it, but it's more like an operational audit to see how efficiently a department is doing. I know we do audits every year, like through PKS, but I'm talking about, because I know what we're going to hear. I know what we're going to hear from these haulers. They're going to say, hey, wait a minute, that landfill's not being run like it should be run. That's why you're not making any money. It's not because you're not charging enough tipping fee. I'm not saying this. I'm saying what we're going to hear.
You might hear that.
Okay.
It's funny that I've heard.
We've already heard it.
I will say that I've heard
already
more
heard it.
haulers say this landfill looked better than it ever has since I've been driving a truck for XYZ, fill in the
Well,
blank.
your hauler's not driving the truck. The truck
Well,
driver's
the truck
driving.
drivers are the ones that see the landfill every day. I would
Anyway,
challenge the owners of the company.
Angie, what's what is the name of that? What is that called? An operational
landfill.
audit?
They could go
Is
to
it an
another one
efficiency
that's done
audit,
better.
or is
It would be operational.
is that what it's called?
Operational,
And
yeah.
you,
So-
that would have to be an independent company that did that. That's not something that you would do. That would be,
I could do something if we had agreed upon,
no, that's not what I'm talking. I'm talking about somebody out there looking at the meat and the bones. I'm not talking about numbers. I'll give you an example. I knew a gentleman that owned a business. He hired a company to come in and audit his business, not just the numbers, but the operation to see how it worked. The first thing the guy told him, he says, the person you have answering your phone, this was an automotive salvage business, by the way, you know, where they pick it up, I need an alternator. The guy told him, he says, your first problem's the guy you got answering the phone. He says, you got to fire him because he don't know how to talk to people. And the guy says, that's a problem. He says, that's my brother-in-law. But that's the kind of audit I'm talking about, where they look at the operation, not just the numbers. So I don't know whether that's something that we probably are going to be hit with or not.
I think a big part of this is, again, the deterrent issue.
So-
It's too affordable.
$1 for the
Oh, yeah,
full.
I agree with you.
$1 for a full year is approximately $135,000 to $140,000, approximately.
Well, and not to belabor this point, but it would be great if the private sector created a program or jobs or what have you to do a landfill. The reason that they haven't is because landfills aren't profitable. What the private sector has responded to, and I'm not talking about local companies, I'm talking about just overall, the private sector has figured out that they can haul trash at a profit. The private sector has not figured out how to run a landfill at a profit. Otherwise, we would have private landfills.
Right. That's
You know, so that's,
Well, it's
Yeah.
like running a civic center, you know.
Yeah.
That's a good point. That's a good point. It's a good conversation, but we'll move on.
84, 88 is what I will prepare it
Yeah.
at the moment.
And you're going to have a resolution sent over for
Yeah.
that?
Good. The next item there was the local management board.
So here's the problem with local management board. You can't look at Munis because each year we have to discreetly track each grant we are provided. Thus, it's given a new grant number every year. As such, I can't run the prior year numbers, the prior year grant numbers in the next fiscal year because there's no budget for those. Because like all of the grant numbers associated with the local management board start with 22.6. Well, last year they all started with 22.5. The year before they started with 22.4. So when I'm running Munis, I can only run based on what we're budgeting for that year. That is why the comparison is actually in the Word document that we provide. Because you can't, Munis can't handle the fact that we have to rename the grants each year because we have to discreetly track them. You just have two comments on here about the chief EMS and the executive administration, or the executive administration for cuts.
Can we talk about the EMS position really quick?
So
Go
ahead.
Yeah, just really quick. So we talked, Lorenzo talked to the state, so to Chismar, who did the SWAT. The state has highly recommended that we do not do this contractually at all. He said, if you want it to fail, then do it contractually. If the council does not want to see this position, then EMS in the county, and us looking at that, is going to stop. So this is the next step, regardless of whether we do 1-in-1 or Chase or whatever. So at some point in time, if we are going to absorb EMS or start looking at what that looks like, this is the next step. If we don't want to do it this year, or council does not want to fund the position, then we'll cut it, but that does halt that entire process. So if we're okay to do that, then that's fine. If we don't feel that we're ready to move forward in that, that's fine. But having an EMS coordinator is the next step, regardless of what direction we go in. So council just has to decide, are we going to halt the process of looking at countywide EMS, or are we going to continue forward? So it's really that decision.
And I think why there's a question mark is there because I still feel like a lot of it is a bit of a crystal ball. And, we're going to bring someone in at an $88,000 salary, and we're not even really sure, what the plan is for this person. That's really, I think, the concern.
I think you were provided a job description as
We
to
were.
what they were and the job description would be the starting point of the plan of what they would do.
Sort of a combined effort of what the job description is and exactly what it is we want to accomplish. That's the real thing. What is
Well-
we want to accomplish? Are we going to be spending, I think Bunky said the other day, we need 100 EMS
In the SWAT, yeah.
individuals
What we would need them to do
this.
is analyze the SWOT, talk to our fire chiefs, figure out, the direction of what we want to go, if we're doing one-on-one, who's willing to have one-on-one? Are we doing those as county employees? Are we doing it where the fire departments are going to have, so they would be answering and doing all of those questions. So they're going to be doing a lot of analysis of our county. Either way, this is the next step. So there's really not much else we can really do in a planning phase. We need to get this person in here to really have that discussion. We want a very well-versed person, somebody who has a ton of experience in this. That way they're going to kind of guide that discussion as to what that looks like and what we're going to do. So again, it's a very simple, do we want to continue moving forward, looking at what countywide EMS looks like, or are we going to halt it? So if we cut the position, it's halted at that point in time. There's not much else we can do as a county. We did the SWAT, and now the next step is bringing in kind of this person, this expert, to really, talk to the chiefs, talk to the departments. And I get it, look, it's a very touchy subject. I understand that. So council needs to make the decision, do we want to move forward with countywide EMS and what that looks like, or do we not? Go ahead, Joe, sorry.
Sorry, go ahead, John.
No, it's fine. I was just thinking, yeah. I saw you wanted to speak, so that's why I said it.
I thought, I've had 3, 4 folks from the EMS come to me and say, why are you going with this? I said, well, we've not gone with it yet. Well, there's no idea what we're going to do yet. Okay, I don't know. That's what I told them. I thought we pretty much, I don't know whether we're going to go with it or not. I mean, we're giving Salisbury millions of dollars to, and like the chief said, it's the cheapest way to go right now. Do we want to continue? Do we want to wait until the executive's office gets an assistant director of administration, let them take the lead on that, like they were going to do before? Mm-hmm. So I don't see any need, I don't know whether I need to say this. You've got some applications for assistant director.
Yeah, I sent 2 over to you guys.
Okay. I think that's probably the way to go.
I was going to ask the same thing, if the Assistant Director of Administration could.
Look at this.
Start the ball
Sure.
rolling on it.
Yeah, I actually was going to have, HR was actually looking to do a risk manager position as well. And we cut that actually and said, we're just not ready for that yet. The assistant director would take on that as well. So I think it would be a good mix. And also, just to let you all know, I know we're going to talk about salaries in a minute, but we will have a vacancy in emergency services. So our deputy director of emergency services kind of took your advice and took the job in Somerset for $50,000 more a year, and they're doing the exact same job. Yeah, because you had said if they wanted to leave, like in the last session, you were like, if somebody wanted to leave for that salary.
Good for them.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm just saying they're doing the exact same job. So we do have an opening in emergency services, but for $50,000 more a year. So I know it's a loss because that was a great succession plan. So maybe if and when Lorenzo retires, maybe he'll come back. We'll see. So, but anyway, if we want the assistant director to look at that, that's fine.
He wasn't happy with the way things were going. Was more. I didn't give him any advice.
Well, no. I'm just saying it was talked about in here. So.
I don't want anybody.
I know the next item on the list was to cut the Assistant Director of Administration. If we cut that, then we don't have, so it's.
Yeah, that comes in line with the fact of vacant positions, but we have two applicants today, so
Yeah.
that's not going to happen.
General fund, what is operating capital usage? That is, so it is in the general fund, it is department level accounts that have a 5-4 in front of them, but like leases have been backed off because leases aren't considered, they're recurring expenses, they're not one-time expenses. So we're using fund balance to do one-time capital purchases within the operating capital section. Contingency, we always put a contingency in there. This past fiscal year, or actually the current fiscal year that we're in, 25, that's where we took the $50,000 for the airport match. That's where we took, I didn't pull the resolution, but we did $116,000 for the sheriff's office, I think, because we had thought that they were going to have vacancies and then they didn't have vacancies, so we had to add salaries back. So that $500,000 is funding for that kind of thing. Oh, that's where we took the increase to the planning and zoning director when we actually had when we were able to hire somebody at a higher salary than what we had originally put in the budget. So that's what contingency is. And then capital projects, that's the transfer to pay for pay-go. We have to take it out of the general fund and put it into the capital projects fund, and so that is the number that ties out to the current pay-go number. Cannabis sales, so we can do 2 amendments associated with that. We get right now approximately $12,000 of sales tax money for the year, which is our share of the sales tax money because we have to split that with the city of Salisbury. And so we're getting a whopping $12,000, so we could increase revenue by $12,000, which would offset, some of these other expenses.
Does that money have to be earmarked for anything?
That $12,000 does not. So it could literally just go in the general fund. We could put it in the cannabis line at $12,000. I can add, then the other amendment that we could make is put a line item in the grant thing for about $320,000. And that's the money that goes over, that would go to LMB for them to then bring to you, because the current structure is they have to bring to you any awards anyways. So we hadn't put anything on there because we have to come to you anyways for awarding anything, but we could do the 320 on the list, but they're still going to come to you for awarding because they can't award any projects for cannabis funds without coming to council for approval, because that is the process that has been set up. So if you'd like both of those added in, that's fine. Again, one is the only drop to the bottom line is $12,000.
That was something that I had a question on, because I was wondering, okay, there's a ton of money that's going to be coming in for cannabis to LMB. Is that just a straight to LMB? I can't remember how we sort.
So the way it works is that the
we do
way
approve it.
council has to approve any project. So until it is approved, there is, and that goes through the grant fund. It doesn't go through the general fund, so it doesn't ever get accepted into the general fund. It never goes, it just literally gets accepted into the grant fund, and then council has to approve who it's being awarded to. So
Well, it starts with the LMB board. So the LMB board votes on it to make sure all the stipulations, and then that final product comes to the council for the final stamp of approval.
Got the process. I'm worried about where that cash goes.
Yeah.
When you say it goes.
So we segregate the funds when we get it in, and it's segregated until the point, and so we let LMB know how much money is sitting there, available for them to award, but it is not available to be used for anything other than these awards.
I asked it, Pam, is because when I was looking at the totals that were in Exhibit D with local management, I'm looking at, children's cabinet, drug-free communities, performing incentive grant. I thought, well, how much of that are grants that they've been getting all along, or how much of that is the cannabis? Because I was very interested in knowing how much that cannabis is bringing into the community.
Cannabis does not run through the LMB fund. Cannabis runs through the grant fund. So LMB fund is Fund 54. The grant fund is Fund
In this case,
2. So it does not run through LMB because there's no operating expenditures associated with it. It is literally money coming in that has to be used for projects.
So what is a way as if we can all know exactly what's coming in and how it's being done? Is that through the budget process, or we're going to have that independently tracked?
It's independently tracked, and it's, again, you are told each time we want to award.
Right.
So again, you are getting that information each time LMB comes before you to award a project.
Pam,
So-
how often do we get the disbursements from the comptroller? Because it's not like an annual disbursement, so which I think would be cleaner for.
We get quarterly sometimes.
Yeah, that's sort of what I was getting at.
So sometimes we get quarterly, sometimes they go, oh, we missed a quarter.
Yeah.
Here's your quarter from last time and this time. So it's not consistent. So again, we could add to the grant exhibit a line item, say cannabis funds, and the exact name, I don't know it off the top of my head, at $320,000, and that would go into the grant fund. But again, none of that is going to be spent without coming to you.
Yeah, and I didn't know whether there was a pot of money that's still, whether they absolutely expended the entire amount each year, or whether there was 100,000 left over in one year and then
We can get you an
50,000
accounting of that.
Yeah, I just was curious, it's part of just,
Pam, is there, knowing the tax is going up to 12% in July, and it appears we might have 2 more dispensaries coming online, are we
So-
forecasting additional revenues?
No, because if you read the way the legislation is written, is the money that we get for the stuff that just drops to our bottom line, the $12,000, that's after the state takes their share for their reasonable expenditures, and we get no definition of what reasonable expenditures is. So if they're increasing the percentage, most likely their reasonable expenditures are going to be increasing as well. So I really don't expect the trickle down to double. I really don't.
In April, there was $96 million in sales in the state of Maryland.
Yeah, so.
1 month.
So again, I
Yeah.
expect the reason the state, this is Pam Olin's opinion, you can state, I will state this as such. Pam Olin's opinion is the state needed additional funds to be able to support whatever infrastructure they are creating related to cannabis, and said, we're going to increase that percentage. And as such, I really don't expect the trickle-down effect to be a whole lot. Could the grant side potentially go up? Yes. But again, that has very specific restrictions and obviously specific ways that we have to spend it. So I don't expect a significant gift from the interest or the tax rate going up.
I think there's a bridge up in Baltimore that needs to be fixed.
So,
On that note, by the way, it might actually likely go down. The Salisbury dispensary has been routinely #1 in the state, and it's not just because we have a high degree of potheads here. It's because Delaware wasn't moving forward with their regulations, and we have Virginia not that far away, so people were coming over. The closest one was Salisbury, but now that Delaware is addressing that and other places.
well, and the other thing is as we add, I think it's a ultimately finite group of individuals who are using it. So the fact that we might be coming online with another dispensary, I don't think that that's going to double the amount of usage. I think it's just going to split the usage between the current dispensary and somebody else.
Are they all in Salisbury?
I don't know the answer to
You are.
Okay, well, I was gonna say that if it's not in Salisbury, we'll have to split that, right?
Yeah, but they're in Salisbury.
Municipality, we have to split it.
We have to split it with
If
the
it's- If they're
municipality.
unincorporated, we wouldn't, right? I
Right.
believe that's-
Yeah, that's the way that works. And then
For my notes, are we adding that? Are you going to be adding the revenue for that?
I can add the line items for $12,000, and I'm sure Julie is fine with that.
What about the 320?
I can add that to the grant
Grants,
schedule.
yeah.
Okay, so both of those will be added.
fine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So just to confirm, it won't be on Exhibit C, just Exhibit D?
So we will have on Exhibit D the 320, and then on the revenue schedule, we will have an additional $12,000. I don't know where that line is, but yes, on the revenue schedule, we will have an additional $12,000.
Does that mean we don't have to raise the tipping fee?
No, different fund, sorry, different fund.
probably 2 items, law,
Ex-
public health, not worried about
Gosh, I
that.
tried.
We can move on.
The public health one, very, very simple. When we move, we will save on parking.
Exactly.
We haven't moved yet. Indirect cost, so the state expects us to load our budget with how much it costs to fund the health department, but then they say, this is how much we're going to give you for some of the costs that are actually really state costs. And so that's why that's a negative number in the expense side. So it's the amount the state is giving back to us to offset our costs. So it's been in there every year. It just is like everything else, it grows, but the state only gave us a
Sometimes
little
4
bit.
years later, you can go, well, what is that?
Yeah, so that's what that is the state gives us, they say, how much does it cost to run the health department? We have to load all those expenses, and then they say, okay, here's how much we're gonna give you to help you pay for those expenses.
Good.
So that's what that is. Additionally, I had previously sent a list of budget changes discussed. Mine was a horizontal thing. I do not know what you have because, again, I was not provided it.
It's the one that says provided by Director of Finance.
Yeah, we have it. Thanks.
And so that is a summation of all of the changes that had been discussed. Doesn't mean that they were approved, but they were discussed. We are recommending definitely the changes of the debt because that reflects the changes that we are requesting on what things are debt and what things are not. Planning and zoning, when we were talking about them, they have a shortfall of $651 for their salary line item. It will impact the position control document, and it will impact this. There's 3 positions that will impact the position control, but the net impact is $651. When we were in here, Rec and Parks, I pulled from a schedule the wrong number for leases, so that's what the $27,000 is. It's actually a general fund impact because I have to change the appropriation on Rec and Parks. So they'll have an increase in their appropriation, increase in their expense, so it nets to 0 on them. And then on the general fund, it'll have a $27,000 impact. We talked about red line employees. So redliner employees are employees that are not getting the full 3+2. There are a couple ways that we can, if council wants to do something with approval because it's additional expense, it's adding to the budget, we could just raise their salaries and do the 3+2. Or we could give them the difference between what their number is as a one-time bonus. That then does not become part of their overall compensation for pension. Like we do the longevity bonus for the sheriff's office in their contract, it's not additive to their number for their salary on the pension. So it gives them the impact of it, but it does not give it to them for the life of their pension. It only gives it to them for the year that we're talking about. Those are the 2 ways that we could do it. It obviously impacts a whole lot more lines than what I've stated here, but this is the dollar amount of that.
Is that the dollar amount of the 3+2, 3% in July, 2% in January?
Yes.
Okay. Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
How would you how would you determine the bonus? Would everyone get a set amount?
No, the bonus would be based on what is the incremental amount. So if they weren't getting anything, what is the 3+2? So we would give them a bonus in July.
Of the full 5%. Right.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Right, of the
Okay.
No, this would actually have to be 3+2, because that's how this is built.
Okay, well, okay.
But we would give them a bonus of the dollar amount at the points in time other people would be getting their raises. So they'd get a bonus in July, they'd get a bonus in January, but they would not get more in their daily salary.
And their bonus amount would be, based on the percentage.
Correct. So
Okay, okay.
so again, some of these people who are redlined were redlined at 4.5%. So their bonus is only going to be 0.5%. If they were redlined at 2%, their bonus is going to be figured out at, they're going to get an additional 1% bonus and then the 2% bonus in January. It's really going to be an individual, unlike the sheriff's office, which is a set dollar amount based on the number of years. This is taking the people and saying, this is what you would have gotten in your daily salary, but we're going to give it to you as a bonus. It will not be part of your pension calculation, but you still get something this year for those numbers.
What's the example of a red line employee?
An example of a red line employee is the current, it's on page 2 of the position control document. There's a senior plumbing inspector. We only were giving them a 2% increase because they would have maxed out on the scale.
Oh, okay, so that's why you're doing it, because some people are maxing out. I
Yes.
see.
So either they're already over the scale, or by giving them these raises, they have maxed on the scale. So what I'm giving them is the difference between what we had already provided them in this and the 3+2.
So as I understand it, they would still get the 5%. It's whether or not it's paid in the form of a bonus or salary. Yeah.
I think the number that you guys have, since I had understood the dollar amount for the changes of 9% to be only those that director and deputy director. That is what you guys have. I have since finished the calculation for anybody who is above $60,000. It impacts 3 employees in Rec and Parks. It impacts 3 employees in IT. It impacts 2 employees in finance, and not counting the directors. It impacts 1 employee in Public Works, I believe, is the list. And these are employees that, again, are underpaid for the duties that they are performing, but I did take them down. So the total impact of that to the general fund would be about $87,000, or actually it would save us $97,000 on the general fund side for reducing all of those employees to 9%. Again, it is
This is ultimately your decision. I really disagree with this. I would really like to keep the ask where it is. I mean, I'm just going to say that because we have been behind for a really long time. And like I said, and not to bring it up again, when Somerset County is offering a comparable position, the exact position for $50,000 more, and we have employees who would be willing to stay for what I offered at, they're making 80, they would have stayed for 100, they left and now are getting 120. I don't want to lose these employees. These are good employees. We have to pay them their worth. And so I think the 9 is very nice, but it's not enough.
How many employees have you lost like that?
Quite a few. Quite a few. I don't know off the top of my head, but
You're always going to lose employees, and you're never going to be able to compete completely with, if somebody wants somebody to go to work for them, they're going to make it work. If you want somebody to come to work for you, you're going to try to make it work.
right.
So-
I think the frustrating part is right now when that employee leaves, that employee could then stay away for 45 days and then come back in our exact position, and I could come to you and say, I need $100,000. And we've done it. We've done it with the Director of Planning and Zoning. We did it with the Director of Public Works. We've come and said, hey, look, this is what this person is asking, and we've given it to them.
That sounds like our system's really broken.
It is broken. It is a broken system, and so
You
what
don't
we're...
fix it by just giving people more money all the time.
Well, I'm not trying to give them more money. I'm trying to value our employees because we are very behind. When Somerset County, which is a lower wealth county than us, is able to give somebody an additional $50,000 in salary, it really makes me question what we're doing. And look, at the end of the day, obviously, this is your decision. But I don't agree with the 9%. I agree with what I gave you because that's what these employees should be valued at. And in all honesty, when we sit here, it doesn't matter who's up here. When and this is the wrong word, but for lack of better term, show favoritism to certain departments and say, we're going to give you whatever you ask for because we know that that's, what you need. And then you don't do that for other departments. That's what hurts the morale in the county. That's what hurts, and we're all guilty of it. I'm not placing blame on anybody. But when we sit here and say, we fully understand what you're asking, we're going to give you everything that you want and figure out a way to make that happen, I want you to do that for every one of my departments.
I guess the real question is, whatever happened to the Bolton study? Because if we were following the Bolton study,
So-
that was law.
Yeah, really
2
quick.
years ago, right?
Yeah, your Bolton study, so the council set parameters. This is before this was before some of us were elected, but there were parameters put into place on that Bolton study where some people were limited in what they got. I think council had said that the highest raise would be $20,000, and you ended up losing a purchasing agent over that decision. However, that's in the past. The new Bolton study has come out, and correct me if I'm wrong, I wish HR was here, but they're at a conference. We're behind on this new Bolton study, so when we send things back out to them, we're behind on these scales now. So that's kind of, like, all of these raises are based on Bolton, are based on these Bolton studies. When we have put it out there, this is where they are right now.
Do we have a purchasing agent currently, don't we?
Yes.
Are they doing okay?
They're doing great, but they're also making $20,000 more than the last one.
Well,
So she was able to
we
come in
gave
and
the other-
negotiate her
we gave
salary.
the other one a raise, but it wasn't enough. He wanted, what, 50, wasn't it, or something? They wanted?
He was making 70, she's making over 90,
Yeah,
and that's why we were able to
wanted
keep
like
her.
110 or 120, wasn't it, or something?
But that's what the Bolton study said. So at some points in time, we followed it, and there were some positions, in all honesty, that were ranked lower, and they were given more. So my point is, I'm not worried about the past. I'm worried about these employees are good employees. They deserve these raises. And I know some of them are shell-shocking. There's some of them, but that's how far behind we are. What's more shell-shocking is what they're making currently right now with the current market. And like I said, this is your decision. The 9% is I'm grateful for that, but they do deserve the full ask.
As a department head, I would prefer it be what I had previously understood, is that the 9% is just for the department heads and the deputy directors, which is the original number that I provided you, and I did not bring that with me, sorry. And we leave the other employees at the percentages that we provided for them, so that, again, we don't lose some valuable employees within IT, finance, rec and parks. These are, yes, they are manager-level positions, but these are manager-level positions with significant experience for us as a county that it would be harmful for us if they walked out the door. So
I think institutional knowledge is valuable. Yes, I mean, would they be replaced? Yeah, but we're losing that institutional knowledge out the door. Right now, and I know I keep bringing them up, we're losing 25 years of experience out the door.
You're always going to have that. I mean,
I know.
you're going to have a county that's going to make an exception for one job position to hire one person that they really want. It's not emblematic of the fact that the entire county is paying better than another county. It's the fact that they chose to maybe make an exception for one position because they really needed
Have any
it.
employees?
one that I provided.
Well, I'm trying to keep who we have, and I want them to show that they're valued. And as Pam said, I would be completely okay if you did the 9% at the director and deputy director level and then allowed those other positions to come up where they should be.
So the difference is it's $41,218 if we just did the reductions for the deputy director and director. It's $97,000 if we did for everybody
Over 60.
over 60.
60,000.
Again, as a director who has positions that are impacted by this, I'm going to advocate for my employees more than I'm going to advocate for myself. I think my employees are worth it, and it is appropriate to be paying them. So those are the two decisions that are on the table for council. I just need to know how you want me to write up the amendment.
So you said the savings across the board for the 9% is how much?
97,
Which is
or
the difference of 50,000, is that right?
about 50,000 between if we did just
Right.
the department heads and deputies, or if we did everybody over 60.
Once again, we're in a situation where we're trying to fix a known problem in a short period of time.
It's been over 2 years, I mean, because we advocated for this last year.
Well, some of them got 8% raises last year, too. So,
What was those suggestions again, Pam? Could you?
My suggestion would be that you only reduce the director and deputy director, which is a $41,000 impact to the general fund. It would reduce expenses by $41,000 versus reducing it by $97,000 for the employees, to add the additional employees that are over $60,000.
That's what you're recommending?
I'm recommending the 41.
Yeah, which instead of saving, in other words, the council's cost-cutting measures would save the county 50 grand out of the budget.
I'm going to go with your recommendation on that. I think 50 grand isn't worth talking about losing a bunch of experience. My opinion.
Yeah, I agree.
I'm okay with it. I am. I mean, I understand why we took the first measure that we did. Sometimes I lose track of where we are with this, and I'm not kidding, because it's a lot of
So,
numbers.
which do you agree with? Do you agree with the 41 or the
No, I
97?
think 50,000 is not enough. I think it was more of a principle as to why we wanted to address that as opposed to a cost-saving measure. I don't mind stepping back and just moving ahead with it as requested. And I guess what we would have to do is sort of reevaluate next year how we're going to do this. And I would really think that if you're going to have these type of increases on certain departments, that it'd be good maybe even have closed sessions ahead of time where we meet with the department heads and they justify why these particular increases should occur. You know,
Absolutely.
anything
So-
up to
We're saying that
5%.
we're going to go with the 20% increases and.
I'd have to, I see, again, Joe, I'd have to go back over this entire list of figures again here, because you're right, a 20% may not be justifiable, but I don't even know who that person is.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought we'd agreed, or.
I think that was a deputy director, so it wouldn't have impacted.
In the 9%
So-
maximum.
I don't know if that 20% you're talking about is the director, the assistant director, whether it's an employee.
So the three IT people there are three IT people that are at 12% versus the 9% that you were proposing. I would suggest you still keep it at 12% and only take back the director and deputy director from 15 and 14 to 9. On the finance side, it is, my manager of accounting is at 15%, and I would say keep it at the 15%. And my manager of disbursement is also at 15%, but take back mine and my deputy director to the 9% numbers. The other one that I have is 12% for an engineer who has been underpaid versus the 9%. I would suggest you leave that at 12%. I would suggest you leave your solid waste assistant. It is at 19%. Oh, no, that one's under 60,000, so that one's not being counted, sorry. There is a park specialist that's 11%. I suggest you leave it at 11% versus the 9. And then there is your manager and supervisor at the Civic Center, which are at 15 and 10. I'd recommend you leave them at 15 and 10 and not make the changes to those, because those are difficult positions to fill. And so again, my suggestion is that the positions that would be cut have the higher level percentages are in some cases are the director and deputy director. So my suggestion is you cut those to the 9, which is a $41,000 reduction, and let us leave the other ones for our next under managers at the percentages that we recommended.
I honestly, when I saw it, I had the sticker shock as well, as I know Jeff did, and I know Joe did. But I think that there, maybe you have to just say it, comes to the point in time where you do have to reassess exactly where you were. I never really was a fan of the Bolton study to begin with when it originally came out. I thought that was how we addressed it. I didn't think it met the needs of the county at all, so.
So prepare a budget amendment with director and deputy director at 9%.
Yeah, do we have a consensus or not?
Okay,
All right.
thank
Jeff
you.
says no. That's good, Jeff. That's okay. That's good. I'm not
Thank
being
you.
critical.
I mean, we talked about this,
I know, Joe. I know exactly.
We talked about, the lower level employees, it's getting 3% and 2%.
Well, we've moved them up to 5.
Now they're up to 5.
We moved them up.
Yeah, I said
They got
Oh,
bumped
by the
up.
way, and I don't like the bonus. I don't like the
3
bonus.
and 2 is what we've moved them up to, the 5%.
I don't like the bonus. I like the income,
They're just getting it in the salary.
but I'm only one. I'm not.
Do you want it in bonus or do you want it in salary? Salary?
Yeah.
Okay. The other one is the fire service, the remaining $1.5 million for the fire service.
Yeah.
That would, so it's stretching the limits for your finance director, but I do think it could come out of fund balance because it is paying for something in arrears. It's not paying for current operations, and our current operation number is built into the budget and balanced. So we would put $1.5 million as an increase to Salisbury for the remainder of the last, because we did 1.5 Tuesday afternoon. I've lost track of days. And then we would put 1.5 in for this, and it would come out of fund balance. And so it would be an increase to use of fund balance and an increase to expense but it would be a one-time item. It would not be a continuing number for them.
And the positive of this is that we're caught up, so like everything is paid all the way through with the 2.2 and then the 1.5. That would take us to the next fiscal year, correct? Okay, so we're paid up just like we are with our volunteers, and so then we would just look at every July, unless we come up with an agreement of some sort.
And the chief has promised us free flounder for a year.
I don't eat flounder.
Rockfish.
That's a feature, not a flaw.
It's rock, it's not flounder, it's rock.
Yeah,
That's what we were counting on, Pam.
I don't eat it. Yes.
I just wanted to, I have to leave it, I have a 5 o'clock meeting. Can I just bring up one thing real quick? The other thing that we haven't discussed that was on that I wanted to check in, I know, Solon, you said you were going to look back into it, but we had the issue with, I know Roads was going to remove the county weed control program, and then we had a bigger discussion just on, basically on
So we
invasive
have.
species in general.
Yeah, so I think that was held as a work session at the last meeting. We don't have all the numbers worked up. What my recommendation would be is that we come back to council into the fiscal year when we have because I don't want to just say it's going to cost X dollars and then we throw it in the budget. I think we need to have a well thought out that this is the position that we need, because there's going to be positions that we need to move from solid waste into general fund. There's going to be additional costs within the general fund, and so to having. And I'll be honest, I only heard about some of the stuff on Tuesday, so I don't have the ability to come up with a number between now and June 3rd. My recommendation is that we do we would come back to council with another, hopefully within the first quarter of the fiscal year, with a dollar amount, and this is what we would need to do X, Y, and Z.
Okay, yeah, and I was just going to say, I know the NARCAC committee was putting together a letter. I don't think they've sent that yet, to my understanding. But there was just the ongoing conversation. I know in the past years, we've put money into that PRISM work and got a lot of statewide attention for that. And I don't know where that sits, whether that be in the broader invasive species work in general. If that's fitting in with Parks and Rec or for other groups, but whatever that looks like, I know that group is gonna round back with the other PRISM coordination, as well as with the state, the folks that reached out to us on the weed control. But if we can find a common ground there to continue to make sure at least we're.
And that's why my
I think that makes
recommendation
sense.
is that we do a comprehensive dollar. These are all the moving parts, because if I try to move them now, between now and June 3rd, I'm going to miss something, and then I'm coming back again. So let's do it one time, hopefully one time, one time cleanly, and that, okay, council, this is the package that you are approving associated with this plan.
And I'm gonna make sure that they send a letter and that any of the right outreach comes back to the council for discussion. I think it makes sense.
What is it we're missing from this? Because I understand the county's made some equipment investment in this program with a tank and a truck and all that. Are we just missing a person, or? what-
So again, if I understand correctly, because I was only tangentially listening to it, is that there is a current recycling person at solid waste that would come over to the general fund side of things to be the coordinator associated with the roadside trash and all that. And so again, it's figuring out the dollar amount, making sure we have any operating expenses that we need to run, because we don't want to just put the person there and then not give them any financial support to do the program. So let us have
Let the dust settle?
Yeah, well, let us put the financial, let's pass a budget.
Yeah.
And let's then come back with a well-thought-out financial plan that's going to tackle this to the best of our ability.
Okay.
Mr. President?
Yes.
I just want to point out that there is another group that's going to be using this room at 6 o'clock tonight.
No, we're
They'll
wrapping
probably start
We're
around
wrapping up.
5:30 to set up.
We're wrapping up. Well, I don't think we're far away.
I got a question.
Before you say that, Joe, the wisteria that Josh had suggested, not just the weed control, but wisteria, I think we need to make sure.
Yep, and let us put that all
That's another
together.
year. That's another year. Go ahead, Joe. Joe?
Can you go to, I guess I'm reading. Can you go to,
Which department? Can I start there?
we're looking at salaries.
For who?
A mason bricklayer,
Okay, so you're looking at the position, it's a position.
Control doc.
Public Works.
roads
Roads,
are on the same page. I don't know if I got the same, airport ops tech firefighter. Looks
Okay,
like a
that's
15,000.
that's the Exhibit E, which is the new, positions.
Okay. So, okay, that's a new salary. So, well, let's go back. You were mentioning these percentage, 11 cent, 12%. How much of an increase was that over those salaries? You had two there in Rec and Parks.
So one is going from 63,000 to 69. At 10%, one is going from 79 to 91.
79. That's a lot of raise in 1 year.
It's a manager of the Civic Center.
Huh?
It's a manager of the Civic Center.
Yeah, I mean, how many places give 10, I mean, how many, I know we're not a business, we're a government, but how many places get just $10,000 raise a year? I mean,
The manager of a Wawa makes more than 79,000.
I don't care what manager Wawa.
Yeah, but we're
Manager of-
we're
manager
paying,
of
we're
Harbor Freight
underpaying
makes over
someone.
100,
We're
you
paying
know.
someone to manage our civic center less than they could make if they managed a Wawa.
Yeah, and look at the benefits. There's more to it than just salary monkey.
It gives me angst to it, Joe, but again, what I had said earlier is that you have to maybe look at it as a reassessment. You know, I never liked Bolton to begin with, and I think you have to look at it as a reassessment. I get it.
Whatever.
Well, that's why I think to do this in the future, we have to I think we need to make sure we know who we're talking to, what the raises are, and we got a department head up here that says this is the justification for it.
I think the only other one that I did not ask about is are you interested in the 5% all happening in July? Or are you still good with a 3+2? That is 100, that's actually a $235,000, $34,000 impact
yeah.
if we do that all in July.
It'd be similar to what we're doing with everybody else, and we just follow suit with that.
Well, again, we're doing 4.5 and 4.5 for the 9, and I still recommend we do the 3+2 and leave it at that. But that's Pam Olin's recommendation to the council, and not have this additional cost for this fiscal year.
Yeah, we just want to get it to 5, period.
You just want to give,
How you want to handle it, I would say, we just want to get it, we want to make sure it's equitable, period.
so you want to do 5% in July?
I think he's saying you can do the 3, 2, or the 5.
Because they're going to get 5 within the fiscal year, it's just they're going to get 3 in July and 2 in January.
Which is pretty much how we're doing it across the board.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I wouldn't expect to.
Okay, so don't do this one, okay. Okay, thank you.
You do have a few
Angie?
more things.
Yes, go ahead.
You have the state's attorney to talk about.
If we are, Julie, you can step
Yeah,
on.
I mean, if we keep everything the way that it is, I have no problem with her additions.
Of the $132,000.
Right.
So if we just do the department heads and everything else, then actually, it's $123,000.
Yeah, we know there's a special exception to that. I mean, it's not like we're picking favorites. There's a special exception to that.
So,
Same with the sheriff's
so that's fine.
office. Angie, you had a question?
On the capital, can we move on to the capital, or are there other?
We can.
Okay, so there were two things that I have notes on. One is the Civic Center marquee. It was on the CIP as other Civic Center restoration, and now it's PAYGO on the proposed budget. But then it wasn't in the list of your changes.
Then I missed it.
What should it be?
I believe it's PAYGO.
Okay, so it'll have to be changed on the CIP then.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
And then,
Go ahead.
this one, maybe this is more for Jeff to ask about with the Sharps Point.
Yeah, it looks like,
Before you go there, can we go back to the Civic Center marquee? Because if you're changing it to PAYGO, is that going to increase that contingency?
I have to look at the budget to see where I have it in what column I have it in. Civic Center, Marquee, already have it in PAYGO.
Okay, all right.
It's just a change on the CIP.
Okay,
I missed it in going through the list.
okay.
So in the CIP, the Sharps Point dredging, we know the issues involved with that project. That, again, it appears we're way behind. It's in as 4.1 million, and that was bonded, not in PAYGO. Is that right?
Let me pull the right sheet up.
Well,
So the recommendation between what was originally submitted was that, let's see, Sharps Point would go to, I did not bring my CIP with me, but we would increase it to $7.5 million, and it would all be PAYGO because we did not feel that we could wait till November for the cash. That we needed the cash available in July, and that's why it's PAYGO, and that's why some of the things were also shifted around in the bonding.
because it's currently in the CIP as 4.1 million under general obligation bond.
And in the stuff that I provided for you guys on Tuesday, it's as $7.5 million of PAYGO.
There you go.
So
Quite a
I
swing.
will work
Quite a
over
swing.
the next, into next week. I will be off on Friday for my daughter's graduation next week, but I will work next week to get you a list and the adjusted pages that would correspond to all of these changes.
I don't think we're done yet. Verizon, we talked about the 2.7, removing that.
I'm assuming
Is that what you're still
council,
going to do?
I assumed council wanted that. I was building this based on that.
This is based on what now?
That you're removing the 2.7, and thus we won't have the debt service, so that's what helps also swing the debt service numbers.
Correct.
And I did talk to Matthew McConaughey and say, listen, you're going to have a study and show details and what have you, and then we can revisit and go in front of council.
How much
So
does a chair
He
cost?
understands.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
How much does a chair cost?
And by
Different
doing-
line item, that's FFE, yeah, but, yeah.
And by doing that, they've recommended the Pittsville Tower to be switched to PAYGO.
From PAYGO to bond.
From PAYGO to bond.
Correct, sorry. And then the library, the Shoemaker Library, also to go from PAYGO to bond.
And both department leaders are fine with that. So if council's okay with that, again, the debt numbers that I gave you are predicated on those changes.
Last one I had was the Liquor Control Board, reducing that amount.
Yeah, boy.
400,000.
Yeah, 800, 400, I don't know. Everybody,
So that is through discussions with PKS based
Yeah.
on them seeing the current results. Now, come August, so per PKS in discussions with them, in August, they will actually vote as to how much they will give us. So if people want to lobby them to give us more in August and we get more revenue, hallelujah. But I have to go with what my auditor can see at the moment, and right now they're saying it's a $400,000 cut.
I was surprised when I saw the 800, I just, boy.
So the 800 is my error. I was
That's
going
all right.
based on what we have been collecting this year, and I hadn't gotten anything updated, so I went with this year's number. So
Well-
that is my error.
400 is more than safe, I think. I'm looking,
Yeah.
I'm thinking maybe 6 or 7 reality. 6, I'd say,
Put
reality.
$1 million.
And it went down to 800 for 2025.
Right.
And again, based on what the auditor is seeing, they're only seeing about $400,000 based on the current formula.
Well, liquor sales all across the board are just way down in the last financial.
Down.
Everybody's going to cannabis, I guess.
15. Yeah, down 15%.
Okay,
it's true.
Is that it, Laura?
Oh, it is
Yeah,
statewide.
15%.
There
across the
there
state.
was some discussion about removing the community promotions line. I didn't know if that was something that
I think we had a discussion on that in the last time.
And I think Joe wanted it moved into the mayor's, or into the mayor's office, sorry, the executive office. I'm fine with it staying where it is.
We talked about it, and you said it doesn't matter. It's just more work for you if you just leave it where. If you just leave it where it is, it's the best.
Yeah, because I don't have to propose a budget amendment for you guys to read out that day. So it's a whole lot easier for me if you just leave it.
Right.
Doesn't matter to me. I mean,
So if you're fine with leaving it there, then I'm fine with leaving it there.
Leaving it? Okay. And then the only other one I have was, someone brought to my attention the Barron Creek Road, CIP. There might be some discussion on that one.
Yeah, we had a huge discussion on that the last meeting, and it's like, why the heck do we even have it in here if there's no out years? It's just one of those things, where you're putting, what's it, 1.75 or something? Why is it even in there?
So the $1 million is intended, I did get further update from roads. The $1 million is intended to cover the cost of us in-house doing everything, and then the paving would come out of the roads budget in their paving plan. So the $1 million would create kind of the base for and this is what I'm being told, between the money that we still have left over from the previous bond and that $1 million, we would have enough funds to do that, and then the paving aspect would come.
Do what?
To span the creek, river, whatever it is.
Yeah.
And then the paving aspect of it would come out of the roads budget in their paving plan.
Somebody said they were not long ago, doing more surveying over there. What was that about?
I can't answer that question.
I believe what they're doing is they're taking up any of the metal, right? Weren't they taking up the
Out
side
the
of the road
guardrails
and all of that stuff? Yeah.
Trying to prep it. I mean, it's dangerous the way.
So
it is.
I just
Well, they're
need to
doing
know if,
surveying as well. You may need to check and see, because we understand they're doing surveying as well, and what they may be doing is really not going to be any useful, 2 years from now. And it's going to be much more than $1 million, I think, you're 3 or 4 years away of even putting any type of a road over that creek right now, just based with MDE, et cetera. And the problems not the problems, but the expenses we had in Fruitland when we had to just rebuild a dam. I went to the very first meeting when they quoted $600,000, and we spent, I think, at least $3 million on that dam. And that's, so, at
just need
this
to
point in
know if
time, commit
council
to
wants
this,
a-
to something that I don't even really know if it's a reality or not.
so I just need to know if council wants it to remain in there or to budget amend it.
I think we said the last time, we have a year to think about it, but I have real concerns, because it is in 27 now, so we have
Correct,
a
it's
year to
not
think
in-
about it.
yeah.
But we do have a concern on that initial
Okay.
835 still dwindling away needlessly.
Okay, so.
That's more of an administrative thing
It's
than
not
finance.
anything associated with this budget, so
Right.
we're good at the moment.
Gotcha. Any other, Jeff?
Yeah, I had notes on this, same thing that you said, John, about why is this in here? I'm looking at the money that we've spent since 2018, and it's
On
it's
what?
over $300,000.
Okay.
It looks like KCI Technologies really likes us, because they're the ones that have made all the money, including $115,000 recently. Looks like we spent $17,000 for a pile of gravel to block the road, but in 9 years, they haven't stuck a shovel in this project, and it keeps getting kicked down the road. And I think, didn't we send an email asking, is there a plan? If there is a plan, what is it? Nobody knows what's going on. And we're getting all kinds of questions. I've talked to people that want the road open. I've talked to people that want the road closed. Everybody has an opinion. But here we are spending hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayers' money, and nobody started anything. And I believe, isn't there something in the charter that says that after 3 years, if you don't do anything, the project is dead?
Only if you haven't had spending, and we've had spending.
Only if you haven't had spending.
If you haven't had spending, there has been spending.
So you keep spending, it stays open, right?
I guess the idea is.
Oh, yeah, I see here, they spend, looks like they spend money every year to KCI Technologies. I guess that keeps the project live.
Stop it.
think there was 2 years, right, that there was no spending.
The third year, there was.
Rule is
Yeah.
3 years.
23 and 24, there was no spending.
And there's been spending in '25.
At the end of the day, Mardella put this in the transportation priority letter, so it's not coming out of the transportation priority letter.
Yeah.
So it is a Wicomico County project due to the fact that Mardella put it in there. So
Yeah.
regardless of whether the road ends up being 2 cul-de-sacs or whether the road, we put a culvert in, or box culvert in and fix it, it can't stay the way it is now. It's dangerous the way it is now. So the road is eroding away, and at the end of the day, somebody, if it starts eroding down the river, somebody's getting charged. And we don't want any of the homeowners getting charged, and we don't want to be charged.
Well, once again, we hear all these stories about what's going to happen and plans, but to my knowledge, we know nothing. And
Well, now that it's in the transportation priority letter, we're looking at funding from the state to be able to figure out something.
Why is the state involved? It's not a state road.
Because there's a bridge fund at the state, so that falls underneath that.
Why would a homeowner get charged?
Go ahead, sorry.
No, I think what she was saying, if a significant portion of this road washes down the river, there potentially would be a fine from MDE. I don't know if, I would assume that would be to us.
Yeah, it would be us. I'm just saying, like, I don't want anybody being charged. So we need to take care of the situation, and it's been, you're right, it's been sitting too long, so it needs to be taken care of.
And I'm a little confused with Mardella, because it's not in Mardella corporate limits at all.
Yeah.
This is the only one out of all the municipalities and townships that have put in requests for this priority letter. Mardella is the only one that has made a request on a piece of property that's not even in their jurisdiction, whatever you call it, their geographical boundaries.
Well, it's
A
think-
little unusual.
it's a neighborhood thing, John, you
Yeah.
know, I mean.
If we
So-
could just get some type of an itemization, if you don't mind, with an explanation of what the expenses have been over the last 3 years and why, it would help a lot.
Do you want anything futuristically, like what the plan is?
If you have something, yeah.
Sure, yeah, we will,
that'd be fine.
yeah.
That'd
We'll
be
get
fine.
engineering to get on it, yep.
Yeah.
And then
Did you-
Anjali still had some questions.
Just about the amount needed to balance the budget, because you have in there, it says 615,000 to balance the budget.
I will have to go back and figure out how that works, but most likely, I will so I will have to go back because some things are coming out, some things aren't coming out. So again, it's a matter of where's the final number. It is not my top choice. I will, depending on the dollar amount, we might look to reduce the some of the contingency number, or if it's small enough, we could just take it out of fund balance. Again, not my preference, but again, fund balance is typically not for operating, but if it's a small enough number to balance the budget, I could live with that.
And then there was a line in here about the library and the tower, and that it would have a net zero transaction, but I thought it would flow through Department 47, I think, the 46, yeah, thank you, 46, capital expenses.
It would increase the use of fund balance. But again, all of those things will net to the number that we have in fund balance, except for whatever this last piece is. So I will make sure all of that nets and balances.
Thank you.
I have one quick question.
Yeah, sure.
Do we know the status of the library grant?
I do not.
Okay.
I-
I asked Seth,
Seth
would-
will be at the next meeting, I think.
yeah.
Yeah, he's
Yes,
the
he's-
next
I
meeting.
asked
at the-
Seth like a week ago, we were in a same
Not
place
had the
together. and-
agenda meeting yet, so.
Yeah,
Well, potentially.
He's
Potentially.
he says it looks good, but I just
Well,
didn't know if
I
there was.
think, I think it was on, like, at the governor's level to be signed, I think. But I
good.
don't know, I forget what he said exactly, so please don't quote me on that. There is something on the agenda, an agenda request for the next meeting, so he could potentially even be here at the next meeting.
All right, thank you.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn. Second.